Call this Madison Board of Education meeting in order. Can we rise and for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we still be standing, please, Mr. Peterson?
I'd just like to take a moment to recognize a couple of our teachers who are mourning the loss of one of their children. Dave and Janice Stupka, many of you probably know, but their daughter passed unexpectedly yesterday. And I'd like to take just a moment so we could observe a moment of silence on behalf of the Stupka family. Please keep their family in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Mr. Stevens, roll call, please.
Mrs. Melissa Walker.
Here.
Mrs. Cotterman.
Here.
Mr. Wigton. Here. Miss Amy Walker.
Here.
Mr. Mosier.
Here. Taking adoption of tonight's agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Stevens?
Miss Amy Walker.
4.
Mr. Wigton. 4. Mrs. Melissa Walker.
4.
Mrs. Cotterman.
4.
Mr. Mosier.
4. Take a motion for approval of previous board meeting minutes, December 18, 2024, and January 8, 2025.
So moved.
A second.
I'll second.
Discussion. Mr. Stevens?
Mr. Wigton. 4. Mrs. Cotterman.
4.
Miss Amy Walker.
4.
Mrs. Melissa Walker.
4.
Mr. Mosier.
4. Item E, presentation of certificates. Mr. Peterson?
Yep. Mr. Stevens, if you would come down here and assist me with this. Just like to take a moment on behalf of the Madison school community. I'd like to thank each of our board members for your leadership and support of the Madison local school district. And we present you with these certificates as just a small token of our appreciation. First, Mary Cotterman, 3 years of service.
Thank you.
Mr. Mosier, 5 years of service.
Thank you, sir.
Mrs. Walker, 5 years of service.
Thank you.
Mr. Wigton, 7 years of service.
Thank you.
And Miss Walker, 11 years of service. Thank you.
Item F on the agenda, recognition of visitors or visitors for comments. Do we have any visitors who'd like to make a comment? Seeing none. Item G, administrative committee reports. Legislative,
No report.
athletic board of control. We met December 19th, reviewed the spring sports and made recommendations for the next spring amounts as far as the budget.
Fall sports, right?
Fall sports, yes, thank you. Student representative, comments? Here she comes.
Hello, for everyone who doesn't know, oh, my mom's calling me. Okay. For everyone who doesn't know me, my name's Elise Huggins. I'm this year's student council president. Oh, she's still calling me. Okay. Okay. So the boys and girls basketball is in their final lap of their regular season with less than 10 games left in their season. And then wrestling has their Top Gun meet this Friday, which they're looking to secure the win. And as well as they were the top 10 teams of the Gorman out of 30 teams that were there. The girls wrestling took second place in their last tournament and compete at Fremont this weekend, as well as compete in their own Top Gun tournament this year. Swimming has been doing good and had a meet last night at the Friendly House. Band and choir had their winter concerts before break, and they were a huge success. And then Madison absolutely loved their snow days and delays last week, and it made it an amazing extended little break that we all needed and eased us into this third 9 weeks, which started this week, or last week, whichever. And then classes are preparing for state testing coming up in the spring, as well as the ACT test. And then seniors are looking forward to their last semester of high school and are making the most of their senior year, which is including me. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Facilities,
I have nothing to report at this time.
no report. Thank you. Board policy,
No report.
no report. Student achievement,
The Career Center had 1 out of 1 student pass the Ohio State Cosmetology Board licensure exam. 11 out of 11 students passed the STNA certification exam. 2 of the students also earned their adult high school diploma. At the high school, the National Honor Society blood drive will be held on January 30th. This event is spearheaded by the National Honor Society advisor Tracy Burden and her National Honor Society officers. This is always a wonderful event, and we look forward to this one being no different. At the middle school, they had 203 students on honor roll for the second quarter, which is an increase from the first quarter. The building is currently at 92% attendance rate, which is an increase from last year at this time. They have implemented an incentive for the third quarter to try to reach more students working through their individualized iReady paths. At Mifflin, mid-year iReady diagnostic assessments are now complete, with Mifflin showing growth rates of 75% in reading and 62% in math, where expected growth is 50%. Next week, Mifflin will begin reading The Adventures of a South Pole Pig by Chris Kurtz, with the annual literacy night following in May. Students are busy learning about setting goals for their upcoming state tests as well. At Eastview, they're finishing up mid-year diagnostics, and they will also celebrate their second quarter PBIS event this Friday with Disco Bowling. And at Madison South, the students have been hard at work. On the latest reading diagnostics, 74% of students have made their typical growth already. We've also had a 25% increase of students who are now on or above grade level expectation compared to the fall diagnostic.
thank you. Go to item H, presentations. Oh, excuse me, superintendent update, number 7.
No update at this time. Thank you.
Item H, presentation. Any presentations?
Good evening. I'm Jen Eckenweiler, preschool coordinator. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our program. We currently have 89 students enrolled in our program. 71 of those are center-based, which means they attend Monday through Thursday, either in the morning or the afternoon. And 48 of those are our IEP students, so students that receive special education services, and then 23 are typical peer models. We also have 18 itinerant students, so those students attend 1 hour per week with the intervention specialist. Sometimes the intervention specialist goes to them at their child care center or another school, or other times they come to us actually at our preschool. We're a very structured program. We include a lot of things in our 2 hours and 40 minutes. We have our circle time, which is our large group time. The teachers go over calendar and weather. We had a grant where we could purchase some smart boards a couple years ago, so the kids enjoy music and movement, especially with that. When we make awareness, they always have to have a snack. Everybody likes to eat, keeps people happy. And we also always have to have some of that gross motor time, get some of those wiggles out. And then we also have some free choice, small group kind of time. Some more about our program. In the last year, for staff, including myself, we went through the certification process to be able to do vision screenings on our preschool students. So far this year, we've screened 70 students. Some people opt out of that for their child, but we usually do these when students are screened before they start in our program. So we have helped several kids in the past get glasses that they needed, and so we're proud of that. We also do hearing screenings. Our preschool speech and language pathologist, Miss Abby, does those, and we also do those when we do that initial screening, when we do the vision. We Also, just purchased a new curriculum through Scholastic. It's pre-K on my way. Really excited about this. We've only had kind of a brief taste of what that looks like and how to use that. So we have a training coming up next week where we really get to dive into that. So I'm looking forward to that. And the reason that we had to change curriculums is because the state likes to change things. So we had to have a curriculum that was on both the Step Up to Quality approved list as well as the Science of Reading approved list. So Pre-K on My Way meets that. And then another change the state has made in the last year, we previously have been a 5-star rated program. They changed that from a star rating to either your gold, silver, or bronze. So because we were 5-star, we automatically go to that gold level. So I look to keep it that way. Some of our highlights of the school year, we've had many visits from our community partners, our friends at the Ohio Bird Sanctuary. They come bring a furry friend for the kids to pet, and they talk about it, learn about them. Sometimes they read a story. We also have, usually it's been Miss Brindy, but she's got a new role now, so we're going to have a new librarian coming. But they tend to read, they read stories and do activities with the kids as well. And then Mr. Peterson, while he's not a community partner per se, he does willingly come over, kind of help support our early literacy efforts and read to our students each month. So we appreciate his time with that because he does come morning and afternoon too. So. We also, some more highlights, the kids had a really good time when we had some community helpers come during our safety week. They got to meet our school resource officer, Deputy Ivy. The little guy there in the bottom picture with him was so pumped to meet the police officer and see inside his cruiser, and just he wanted to hold his hand, and it was a good time. So also the Madison Township Fire Department, thanks to Captain Lambert and his crew, he usually spoils us, brings lots of trucks, probably 4 or 5 trucks, an ambulance. They let the kids spray the hose. They showed us how high their ladder goes this year. It was really cool, actually. So some of those things are some of our highlights thus far. Some other things that we've done, we took our field trip to Honey Haven Farm. This year we actually got to go on the hayride, so that was fun. We learned about, the guy talked a lot, so we learned about a lot of things. But the kids also got to learn about different kinds of pumpkins, shapes, sizes, colors even, and they had examples there, so they went through little pumpkin school. There's a petting zoo, a straw maze they can run around in, and they also got to take home a pumpkin and a coloring book. So that's a fun engagement activity with the families. Another one that we do annually is our Winterfest, and we just had that shortly before school was out before break. And we do a lot of things at that, especially the cookie decorating is definitely one of the fun things. And thank you to our culinary arts department at the high school. They willingly donate our cookies and icing and sprinkles for that. So I'm very appreciative of that. The teachers plan crafts and activities. We did have a visit from Santa Claus, so that's always a highlight as well. And then finally, we did have some fun with some of our admin and one of the paraprofessionals at Madison South. We had Mrs. Claus was Nikki Cox, Mr. Turlow was one of the elves, and Mr. Gordon was one of our elves too. So I'm thankful that we have admin that support some of the little silly things I like to do. So we got to have hot chocolate and popcorn and wear our PJs to school that day. Just some things to come. We're starting to dive into our transitions. So all of our students on an IEP, some of them get re-evaled, and some of them we just amend their IEP, but make sure that they're ready for kindergarten, add in some academic goals and things if they need that, but make sure that they're set when they start school in the fall. We'll be getting our licensing and Step Up to Quality visit probably in the next couple months. They've been coming in about March the last couple years, so that's an annual thing. Our Spring Fling, which is our preschool prom, something kind of fun. Some of them get into it. They get dressed up. Sometimes they'll do flowers like corsages and boutonnieres and stuff. Just a fun couple hours to dance and be silly and play some games. We had musical chairs and just all kinds of stuff last year, so it's fun. With our field trip to the bird sanctuary, they come to us all year, and then at the end of the year, we go and take kind of a tour of the bird sanctuary. They take us on a hike through the woods and talk about different plants and things and show us animals and all kinds of stuff. So the kids enjoy that with their families too. And the final field trip that we'll take this year, I think it's important for our kids going into kindergarten to kind of get acclimated to their elementary school a little bit. So we take a bus ride over to each of the elementary schools and let them meet the teachers, meet the principal, see the classrooms. The teachers are always wonderful and kind of just let us jump in, and they make us part of their lesson a little bit for a few minutes. So we really enjoy that, and I think sometimes that's their first ride on a bus, and so it's a fun kind of first experience for the kids. And then we'll kind of round out our year with our preschool graduation at the end of May. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm Lindy Holfinger. I'm the director at Madison Early Childhood Learning Center, and from our building, we also run the latchkey sites in the schools. A little bit about our program. We currently have 95 MECLC students and 60 school-age students between our Rams Club and latchkey sites. We are Step Up to Quality rated, and we are designated an inclusive childcare program. I get asked a lot about our funding, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about that. So we are funded through self-pay tuition fees. We get funding from ODJFS for publicly funded childcare, and we also participate in the Child Care Choice Program through ODJFS. We have 20 slots, which is now 10 full-time and 10 part-time slots for ECE grant children. That is through the Department of Children and Youth and ODJFS. And then we also get a grant from CACFP for our meal funding. I apply for that each year, and then we have to follow meal patterns, and we have parameters that we have to follow to get reimbursed for our meals. And we serve breakfast, lunch, and snack to all of our full-time students. We have the opportunity to apply for competitive grants, and then sometimes grants come out through ODE or ODJFS or the Department of Children and Youth that we have the opportunity to get. And then also we get donations from community members and family members. We've had a lot of big projects this year, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk about some of those. One of our biggest projects was the boiler project. So we have a new boiler. We think the boiler looks really cool, so we thought everyone else might like to see what a modern steam boiler looks like. So there it is. It's about 3/4 the size of our old one, so she's little. She's also a pretty color, so we love her. We also have remodeled both of our infant classrooms. We received a stabilization grant that freed up some money for us. We were in dire need of some renovations. Some of the barriers and such that we had in our old building didn't really work well for our new building. So we made some new walls. We didn't make the walls. The carpentry career tech students came and did that for us. And then that allowed us to have a better room arrangement. We got some new barriers, we updated some bedding and high chairs, and I'm gonna show you some pictures of that. So this is room 1, this is our younger infant room, and those are the new barriers that we were able to add, and the new room arrangement which allows a lot better visibility for the staff. This is room 2, same scenario. If you see in the back there, those 3-foot-high barriers are what were around the whole classroom, and so it made it really challenging for the staff to see the students when they were like serving meals or preparing food. So flipping the arrangement and then getting the clear barriers has really enhanced the care that we can provide to the children. We have added transition classrooms for children ages 2.5 to 3.5 years old. In order for children to go to preschool classrooms, once they're 3 years old, they need to be potty trained. We found a growing trend of students not being prepared to go to preschool at 3 years old and be potty trained. So to address that issue and to be able to provide care for those students and keep them enrolled, we have started these 2.5 to 3.5-year-old rooms. rooms. So it can accommodate those children, but also bridge the gap between a less structured toddler room and then a more structured preschool setting. So this is one of those classrooms. Another thing that we did this year is we added one of our preschool rooms. We have one full-time lead teacher and one full-time assistant teacher in that classroom with 18 students. That provides 2 teachers in the room at all times so that we can provide care for the children who need a little bit more support. We also received an access grant for the Inclusive Child Care Program, and I think I talked about that before, but I didn't show anything that we did with that. So we have added an infant toddler gross motor room and new gym equipment, and then got a lot of sensory supplies with that. So here is our infant toddler gross motor room. Before, we didn't have a space for them to play outside of their classrooms, and some of our students are there 10, 12 hours a day, and being in that room, you know, it can be a bit much. So this allows them the opportunity to get out of their room, go down the hall. We have a little infant play space you can see in the bottom middle there, and it allows them to have that extra gross motor time, which is so important, especially in the winter. Some of those, the ride-on toys that my models are on right there, we did an Amazon fundraiser, and we had a lot of those donated by families to us as well, and the children love those. This is some of the gym equipment we were able to purchase with the Access Grant. Again, I have lovely models that were helping me out here. So we were able to get a lot of things for what we notice as a need is gross motor, fine motor, and then having that sensory input. And a lot of these, the equipment here allows the children to get the input they need. Jen is going to talk a little bit about Safety Town, then we're going to switch back.
All right, so you're looking at the co-directors here of the program. We're starting to think about another year of Safety Town. Registration will start on April 7th, and it'll go for about a month. We have to get those in before we start in the first couple weeks of June, so we can get our t-shirts made and have all that stuff ready to go. We can serve up to 60 students, and those are only students that'll be entering kindergarten in the fall. And it's by doing some fundraising and things to bring in money to pay for supplies and just different things, we always try to make it free for the students to attend, and we've been successful thus far. So kids are learning lots of different things. We bring in different speakers to talk about these different topics. There's a few of them listed there. The last one down there at the bottom, the personal identification kits. Lindy and I take each of the kids one by one, and we do their fingerprints, so then we can send that home, and parents have that just to, God forbid, but just in case a child would ever come up missing or get lost or something. So we felt like that was an important part of that as well.
So last year, last year, one of the projects we did for Safety Town is that we were able to get 4 new buildings built by the carpentry students. Mr. Casey's very awesome for helping us get this done. And then Becky and I painted them, so we love them. And we're hoping to continue to add buildings and repaint. Some of our other buildings that we've had for a few years, they need repainted, so that's on the list for this year. We also updated the curriculum a little bit, and the teachers were really excited about that. They said the children really enjoyed having more hands-on activities and crafts. This year, we're hoping to get a new storage shed. We have a storage shed that came with the building when we purchased, when MECLC moved into the building, but the shed is very far away and it's very old, so it's starting to deteriorate a bit. And then also, as you can see, those houses are made out of real wood, our signs are made out of real metal, and our bikes are heavy, and we have 4 staff members that have to bring that out and take it back, and right now it's taking a lot of work, and we've been leaving them out because it's just so far away that it's really not practical to expect them to do that.
They're really heavy.
Really heavy. Yeah, really heavy. So what we're hoping to do, I've already talked to Casey and Jake Grove, and we're hoping that we can do fundraising And the carpenter students are going to build us a new shed on the Safety Town lot, which would be so helpful for the staff.
And just, we want to, there's all of our guest speakers that we had last year. Most of them come each year. Thanks to the sheriff's office, they send out a deputy. Casey comes and talks about like medications and being safe with things like that. We've had a lifeguard from the Croc Center come the last couple years, and they've been great talking about being safe around the water. Red Cross has come. They talk about being safe when it comes to weather emergencies and things like that. And they do lots of fun activities with the kids with it too. So it's pretty cool. Obviously, the fire department's going to be a hit. That we usually save that one for our last like full class day. And kids enjoy that a lot. Mr. Yost always comes and brings a bus and another one of his drivers, and they take the kids for a ride, and he's great teaching them how to cross the street and when to wait for the hand going up or down and all that good stuff. So he's been really amazing with that over the last few years. And then Dr. Judy Villard-Overauger from OSU Extension comes and does some of our car safety kinds of things. And then there's a list of some of our previous donors, and again, we're very thankful for them. Any donation that they give, big or small, we're very thankful and fortunate to have them continue to do that each year. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. Item I on the agenda, donations.
So moved.
Entertain a motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd just like to thank the Steve Christ family for their generous donation. Mr. Christ, when he was growing up, his family didn't have a whole lot, so he had a special place in his heart for students who struggle and families who struggle. And that donation of $1,400 went towards any of our students who were seniors who were on free and reduced lunch that had negative lunch balances, and that completely wiped all of those lunch balances out for our seniors. So very thankful for Steve's wife and their family for that generous donation.
Any other discussion? Mr. Steve?
Miss Amy Walker.
4.
Mr. Wigton.
4.
Mrs. Melissa Walker.
4.
Mrs. Connerman.
4.
Mr. Mosier.
4. Item J, treasurer business. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
I think Mary beat me.
Discussion?
Did he say Mary beat him to it?
Mary said it for.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear Mary.
Okay.
All right. So, first thing we'll talk about are the revenues. They're a little bit, they're low, but that's only because of one delinquent tax abatement. We have sent out, past due notices. It's only, at this point in time, it's a couple weeks late, so if we don't get it soon, I will follow up with the county. But that's basically the local and general, why that's lower. And clear back in October when I talked about the enrollment being down and affecting the state funding foundation, that explains why that small amount, $29,000 is a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like 1/10 of 1% of our annual foundation. So it's significant, it's a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things of that amount, it's not real significant. Expenditures, this is also pretty skewed because in the last 3 years, we've had ESSER money that was offsetting salaries. There was a stipend that was paid in December, and then we submitted to the federal government, state, it's called Project Cash Request, to get reimbursed for those. So when it looks like, the expenditures for salaries have increased $331,000, the only reason they've increased because general fund increased 331. Really, they're within about $1,000 of what they were a couple of years ago. So it isn't a true increase because we had ESSER money last year to offset that. Same way with the benefits, salary, benefits are tied to salaries. So we were able to offset that, and there's no more ESSER funds, they're gone. So that's why last December they looked a little bit lower. So those things aren't really, they're increases over December of last year, but they're not. It's just because we had offset it with extra money. The purchase services, we've had some increases in what we have to pay for nursing, for health services. We've had some increases in electricity, things like that. So that's what that accounts for. The rest, it's pretty minor. I've told you I try to keep these things timely and relevant, so I did change this next one around a little bit. In December, Ohio Department of Education, ODEW, gave their district profile report, which is a comparability report. They put it out finally for FY24. So I just picked a couple things like our operating expenditures per pupil and our revenue per pupil, and then the difference in like the percentage of disadvantaged students that we had, and it compares, it gives, like Madison's in the middle of operating expenditures, in the middle of revenue per pupil, and then the difference, I know we're on the lower end, but that just means what we are receiving, revenue per kid, we're spending expenditure per kid. It's a very small variance there. And then the disadvantage, we're up there, and disadvantage means low income, which the only reason Mansfield City's at 100% is because they are on the CEP program. So, like I said, I just tried to keep these timely and relevant, so that just came out, so I stuck those in. Forecast is the same, that's always in there. We're, December was 50% through the year, so we're 51% on expenditures, so we're right at that cusp. We're maybe a little high, but as I said a couple months ago when Mr. Neuron was giving an update on some of our expenditures, we have blanket purchase orders, super blanket purchase orders at the beginning because we don't know if there's going to be a boiler blowout or a gas blowout. And just so happens this year we've had some expenditures hit earlier in the year rather than later. So that's why that's up a little bit. And revenue is right, 47%, which is close. So that's basically the forecast or monthly board report. And then the next thing they have on here is your tax budget. And the tax budget, I explained this last year. Basically all it is I have to submit something to the county auditor. The county auditor takes before the commissioners and they approve it. And all it is just enough to set the district's temporary revenues from July 1 until I get the permanent budgets sent to them in September. They can't, they have to be able to approve at this county that we're not budgeting more than what we're spending. And our temporary budgets are always set at 50% of what our expenditures were. So they have to have at least a 50% of what our revenues were to be able to set that and approve it. So that's all it is. And I'll send it to, it's got to be done by, it has to be approved by January 15th and sent to the county commissioners by the 20th of January. So that's all that is. Are there questions on either the monthly board report or the FY26? It's scary to think the FY26, wow. Budget.
Nope.
Okay, Mrs. Melissa Walker,
4.
Mrs. Connerman,
4.
Miss Amy Walker.
4.
Mr. Wigton?
4.
Mr. Wigton, or Mr. Mosher?
4. Item K, strategic plan, culture and climate.
Good evening. So Andrew and I are the co-chairs of the Culture and Climate Committee. So just overall, our focus has been just continuing to foster a culture that promotes a safe and positive and supportive environment, which breaks down to 3 action steps. And Andrew will start with action step 1, I'll do 2, and 3. We're going to try to keep it short. So
Sure. No need for slides tonight. We sent those out previously. We're just going to go through some highlights. The first goal is pertaining mostly to PBIS related stuff, if you will. It is in the Madison community, we continue to foster a culture that promotes a safe and positive and supportive environment. So for community members and maybe people that aren't familiar with all the education alphabet soup, PBIS is related to all things classroom management, student recognition, staff recognition, school rules, that kind of thing. So some of the action steps that go along with that would be ensuring that we have school-wide PBIS matrices, which would be like school rules in all of the buildings. And then we're also going to be, as another action step, looking at district-wide data collection, so we have a better snapshot as to what office discipline referrals look like at a district level, and then breaking that down in terms of what do suspensions look like, in-school detention, truancy issues, all of those nuances. We're going to be doing a better job tracking those kind of things. We're going to be collecting data on how expectations are taught in buildings, and all of this is going to be done through Google Forms. Some of our metrics that we're going to be looking at to tell whether we're doing it or not would be we want to see an increase in student participation by 5% in our PBIS events, and we want to see a decrease by 5% in office discipline referrals. Another thing to note that also goes along with accountability for PBIS is looking ahead to next week. We're going to be meeting with our administrators and talking about PBIS recognition with somebody from State Support Team 7, and that's basically like a regional consultant from the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. So credit where credit's due. We're doing a lot with PBIS, and so why not?
Oh, this is the
I
show.
think you can just go.
Yeah,
through
we
all
can
of
just go safer.
Yeah, that-
Okay.
yeah, that one.
So for our second action step, we are just trying to increase the support, the community support at school-sponsored events. We just kind of collaborated that with the celebrating 100 years of Madison. So you've seen, I'm sure, billboards, and we had the 100-year or the alumni game night, which was very well attended. We've had some celebrations at basketball games celebrating different decades and just recognizing some of the achievements of the district over the past 100 years. So all of that continues in helping to get some of the high school students to be able to attend and afford to attend the events happening at the high school, the athletic events specifically. We do reach out in the spring to some community businesses, and they sponsor some student tickets that the students then in turn can choose as a reward if from a PBIS incentive. So what we're looking for is to see the increased community support that we want to observe at the events that are being sponsored. And I think that hopefully you've been to some of those things and been able to see it in person. So that's been going well.
All righty. And our last goal, goal 3, pertains a lot to school safety. In the Madison community, we continue to foster a foster a culture that promotes a safe, positive, and supportive environment. The main strategy is to educate students and families regarding the danger of threats, particularly in regards to social media responsibility and the consequences of such acts. So a lot of this connects to community partnerships. So I think previously we were talking about CACY, C-A-C-Y. That's one of our community partners. I think that was mentioned somewhere in the board meeting earlier this evening. That's a great community partner. Our school resource officer, another community partner in the Richland County Sheriff's Department, and even we have some contacts with the FBI that we're reaching out to do more education with our students and families. We're looking ahead at maybe integrating those educational opportunities at family nights, parent-teacher conferences, that kind of thing, where we'd already have people in the buildings. Another piece of the puzzle here with this particular part of the action plan would be surveys. And so we're in the process of drafting some surveys that would be going out to families to just get some perception and feel for, what people think about the culture and climate, safety aspects of our district. And then there's more to that that's going to be discussed next week when we talk about PBIS, because there's surveys that go along with the recognition piece that go along with recognition as well. Any questions? The slides that we're kind of flipping through, that has the action plan and some additional accompanying data that was sent out to all of the board members. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Yep.
you.
All right, item L on the agenda, matters related to personnel. Entertain a motion to accept the matters.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
any discussion? No discussion? Roll call, please.
Miss Amy Walker,
4.
Mrs. Melissa Walker,
4.
Mrs. Cotterman,
4.
Mr. Wigton,
4.
Mr. Mosier.
4. Then we go to agenda item M, superintendent's business. Entertain a motion to accept the superintendent's business.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion?
The only item I'll call your attention to, which is a little bit out of the norm, is item 3, where we're approving a board policy through one reading as opposed to our normal 2 readings. That particular policy is attached to a law that resulted from Senate Bill 29. And when Senate Bill 29 was initially enacted into law, there were some unintended consequences with that were impacting day-to-day operations for districts. The legislature went back and took a second look at that, revised it through an additional law. And so this policy is actually, you'll also see it under the other list of policies. So it's actually a second revision of that policy. So in order to just combine those revisions and complete it this month, I thought it would be wise to just do one reading of that. That's all.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wigton,
4.
Miss Amy Walker.
4.
Mrs. Melissa Walker,
4.
Mrs. Cotterman,
4.
Mr. Mosier.
4. Item N, visitors' comments. Seeing none, we'll go to president business on the agenda. Our next regular Board of Education meeting will be February 19th, 2025 at 6 p.m. at the Madison Middle School. Then number 2, we have a request to go into executive session for item A2 on the agenda. Need a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mary Cotterman, second. Any discussion?
Mr. Wigton,
4.
Mrs. Cotterman,
4.
Miss Amy Walker,
4.
Mrs. Melissa Walker,
4.
Mr. Mosier.
4. And there will be no voting after we return. You're welcome staying, but thank everybody for coming out. We'll go into executive session.